Pecha Kucha 119, building logo, and smiley German 1. Yeah, it was a really productive Monday this week. The rest of the week, not so much. I'm actually not sure if it was a good week or a bad week. I think it's because it was technically both. But I got stuff done, so let's talk about it. This is a holdover from last week. I didn't just read comic books. I was working on some logo designs for a guy who wants his clothing company to not represent some kind of clothes thing visually. He wants a cityscape and he wants his name in some relation to the logo. I sent him that kind of thing, and he came back with this a very simple, very strong, kind of super abstract cityscape. Why it says logo name, I can only speculate, is because he found it on Google, which makes me very suspect about us going forward with this design because that's not clever. I just dumped a load of different fonts underneath it as requested. The irony being his favorite font was the one that wasn't going to be on here, but when I put it into Photoshop, I was a couple of fonts short for a 9-ways grid. He liked the bottom one, the bottom right one. He kind of made a throwaway remark through the middleman about wanting to try out windows on the buildings. Yeah, so I tried that, different densities. The perspective makes that awkward, and yeah, it's not like I have the greatest amount of experience doing that kind of thing. Then we tried shadows, which I think we all agree is a much more visually enjoyable choice of kind of defining the shapes here. I do worry though that when you add a gradient to things, it just looks like it's web work. It's not going to look so good printed on a business card. The client, after providing the logo, then provided the font. This was his choice. I thought, let's see if we can get the building to curve, make it match the logo, see if we can get some synergy there. With the shadows, see if anything, is working. He then decided he wanted the buildings in a ring, so he's basically doing the work for me, and it's just my job to like produce high pixel versions of these Google grabs he's making. Still, I think this is slowly descending into farce if it wasn't there to begin with. So 3 mock-ups putting it in a ring. The rings are not. There are several ways you can make these things in Adobe Illustrator, and I don't know any way to make them like perfect by eye. It's a mess, but it doesn't matter. After this, the client then wanted to have his name in the building. He's not given feedback for this yet, so this is where we currently are. I'm just doing what I'm told. It's easy work because this is not this is not complicated. I mean, nothing's easy in Illustrator, but as it goes, like those building things I did at the start were way more complicated. Smiley show. I'm sure I've shown the pencils before. I was colouring it this week. It's finished-ish, and I'm going to put it on my Flickr so people can read these. It's not up yet. I don't really want to just dump them on Instagram because I want Vegeta to be crude. Let's put it that way. I wasn't sure if I wanted to actually just use the pencils for the second and third page in that kind of manga tradition, but I think it reads better on a screen when it's in colour. But I think I will probably make both the pencils and the colours available, and maybe I'll make it like a Patreon thing because I need to sort out a Patreon, and I think I need a Smiley Show Patreon. And I might not specifically have a Patreon that's just for me. I'm going to have to figure out just how Patreon works. But I mean, I just think there's a dynamism to some of the shading with the chalk brush that I don't want to lose by, colouring over it. So there's value to both. This was also the week I finally kind of started my illustration database. So this is InDesign, and I was just making notes about Illustrator and Manga Studio, and I've just dumped them into a document in InDesign. And I might turn it into a book that looks like a publishable book. That's why it's in InDesign. And so I remember all the stuff I learned. This is also the week where I decided I'm going to start a new YouTube thing where I kind of sketch, the characters who are probably coming on the Smiley Show. I had a lot of fun. I did it live, no editing. which is super important. As I discussed in the video, it's about 20 minutes long, and it feels the right length. The quality of the art's not high, but this is about information gathering. It's Metal Gear Solid 1, Solid Snake. He's not a particularly complicated character, but I'm a big fan of Metal Gear Solid, so he is the kind of guy that might show up in a Smiley show. And I'm probably going to have to do one of these on the Smiley show so people know what that's about. The title card was just something I threw together just so I could upload the video and get feedback from friends. It needs a bit of changing, not much, but really the important thing is it says what it needs to say, and that the artwork that is produced is kind of front and center. I watched an interesting video by Mikey Mega Mega. I'm never going to remember his name. Where he was using Mankins to create reference, to use as reference to create artwork. I've always thought about getting one of these things, but I just don't spend the money. It's but yeah, this Metal Gear video I saw is the best 123 seconds of my life. This was solid gold. It was retro. It was funny. It was quite well produced. This is why I love YouTube, and YouTube just sends it to me because hashtag Metal Gear Solid. So sad clown of the week goes to Final Fantasy Tactics, the PSP game, which I finally finished after, I don't know, something like 8 years. I just picked it up and I put it down. I picked it up and I put it down, and this week I finally finished it. And unfortunately, it kind of fell apart in the end. The gameplay mechanics, the narrative, all of it came to a dissatisfactory conclusion. And I've spoken about how sometimes that's an acceptable outcome. When I spoke about, I think the film was called Jinro, an anime I mentioned in passing a few weeks ago. That is a thoroughly dissatisfactory film, but you can argue it's art. Final Fantasy Tactics, by the end of it, it feels like you've been cheated out of a good ending. The mechanics, you see how obviously the mechanics are unbalanced, and it's therefore a kind of a poorly made game. And the PSP version is probably particularly guilty of this, because I think I was unintentionally using a party full of DLC characters, because they'd added Balthier from Final Fantasy XII as a playable character and Cloud as a playable character from Final Fantasy VII, but he's terrible. But Balthier had a gun. His gun was twice as strong as everybody else's gun, and this is a game where guns they're not really supposed to be in the game. They're just too good. It's a game where everybody's like knights and stuff, and they use crossbows and swords, and then here comes this guy with his tight pants and his gun, and he put the last boss down, both final forms, before it actually did any damage. Him and the rest of the party, but he was the main man. He Oh dear, sad clown of the week. There you go. Anyway, that brings us to the end of Pecha Kucha 119, and I'll see you next time.